Hey guys, Ivor Margerison here again, founder of MicroWeddings.org and author of the book How to Plan Your Own Micro Wedding. I have planned and officiated about 1,000 small weddings. It's what I do, it's what I specialize in. Today, we're going to be getting into my book, my guide, chapter 1, talking about places. Now, these are the specific locations for your wedding. So, when it comes to a micro wedding, maybe you've seen my other videos, but basically with a micro wedding, there's two big aspects to the day. We got the ceremony, and then we got the reception, which is usually kind of more like a dinner or a brunch or a lunch, depending on the time of day. So we're going to be talking about those places specifically. So let's start with the ceremony. Now, compared to a regular wedding, you got about 100 people, 150 people. You need to find a place where you can have a ceremony, and then somewhere within walking distance, you can go have the reception afterwards. So, and that reception has to have a dance floor. So that's the tricky part of a traditional wedding venue. That's what they offer. They offer the place a seating for 150 people with a nice view, and then they walk across, and then there's somewhere set up for dinner, and there's a dance floor there. And to have all of that in one place, it's difficult to put that together, and it drives a high price. And it's as simple as that. There's a lot more people who want weddings and want those venues than there are venues in most places. So the supply and demand creates incredibly high prices for those locations, specifically during the summer and on weekends. So the number one thing with a small wedding, assuming that one of your goals is to save money, is to try to think outside the box. And with a small wedding, it's very easy to do that because we don't have to work with a big traditional venue. We don't want to work with one because they're going to usually be too big and too expensive. They're going to have minimums. You're going to end up paying for 100 people even if you have 30. So let's talk about, say you got this is going to pretty much apply to groups, 30 or less people. That's kind of the fence. There's really no rules, but that's usually the kind of the line in the sand. Now, if you have 30 or less people, basically we're looking for somewhere to go do a ceremony. We're going to prioritize photos. Why not? You have the flexibility to do it. So let's think about somewhere nice to go. Now, oftentimes a public park can be nice. If you can find kind of somewhere that's, obviously not right next to the dog park or a frolf course. Depending on where you are, highlight your attributes. If you're in the mountains, if you're in Colorado, find a mountain park. Go up in the mountains, get some nice views. If you're somewhere with a beach, obviously that's an easy one. And if you're doing a destination wedding, then all of those things can be possible. But with less than 30 people, you can kind of go wherever you want. Now, at some point, you might want to think around 30 people, you might want like chairs and decorations, and that's going to close things off a little bit because most locations, there's kind of a gray area. They're going to say no weddings, but then you're like, what if it's 20 people, like for a vow exchange? Then they're kind of like, I don't know, do whatever you want. There's really not specific rules in place yet for micro weddings, so it's kind of a gray area in most cases. Now, if you and 20 people want to go to a park, stand around, do a ceremony, take some photos, no one's really going to say anything usually. It's kind of unclear what you're even doing. Whereas if you want to set up an arch, set up chairs, throw flower petals, now you're probably going to need a permit depending on where you are, if it's public land. So kind of keep that in mind. And most places are going to have specific permits, special event permits usually. So if you're looking for somewhere nice, you don't know what the rule is, just call. Figure out who's in charge of the park or who's the public land, whatever the case, if it's national forest or beach, just call them and ask what the rule is. Usually they'll have a specific rule in place for if you want to set stuff up or if there's going to be commercial vendors, if there's going to be alcohol. Just get the right person on the phone. They'll help you out. Now that's the ceremony. Again, go somewhere nice, have a nice ceremony, take some photos afterwards. Simple as that. Now, after the ceremony, we're going to have the reception. And I'm doing the finger thing because you're probably not going to have like a dance floor and a DJ unless you're above maybe 40, 50 people. At that point, that can kind of change. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you're less than 30, you're really just looking for a private place to have a nice dinner. If you can find a brewery, maybe a winery, a rooftop, somewhere cool, somewhere with a private room, that's always nice. Maybe somewhere that has a private room set up for kind of events. So maybe you have your own bartender or a music system or something like that. But it's really not that big of a deal. You're going to think of it like having a private dinner with 20 or 30 people. You can still have people give toasts if you want. You should still be able to bring a cake. You can do all those things, but you don't need a dance floor. And that's why your options open up so much. Now, if you get above 40, 50 people, that's where things can get kind of tricky. And so as we move in here from the ceremony and the dinner reception, where you basically just go to dinner and there's other options. Obviously, you could bring in a private chef to a rental home, do whatever you want. Basically, those are two separate things. We got ceremony and then we got a dinner. Oops. Now, let's talk about you're more like 40, 50 people, 60 people, 70 people. Now it's like, you're it's not really a micro wedding realistically. It's just a regular wedding with less people. At this point you're thinking, well, we need some more for the ceremony. It's like you can't just go to the public park with 80 people. It's weird. It might rain. With a small group and there's bad weather, you can move pretty quickly. You pop umbrellas, the ceremony's short. There's not that many people to get to their cars. 70, 80 people, you got kids, you got old people. You need some more accommodations. You don't want to be at a public park without a bathroom. So now you're thinking, and then you're also thinking, oh, 70, 80 people, we want to do some dances. We want to party. So now you're thinking, oh, is there like a place where, yeah, you're talking about a wedding venue. So a wedding venue is going to have chairs and accommodations to do a ceremony with 80 people. They're going to have an indoor backup in case it rains. And they're going to have a big place to feed you, set you up, and have a dance floor. So now we're talking about a regular venue. So if you are trying to go after a regular venue and you are a micro wedding, most places are going to have minimums. They're going to say, yeah, there's no minimum guest count. You just have to pay at least X in food and drinks. You're going to do the math. You're going to realize this is for 100 people. So if you have an unlimited budget, that's great. You probably wouldn't be watching this video, but if you do, you can take 40 people, 50 people, 60 people and go to a 200-person venue. Do whatever you want. Assuming you have a budget and you want to go after a traditional venue and you have a significantly smaller group than normal, you need to try to go after a less competitive day. Why would they take you and let you pay less if they can take someone else and have them pay more? It's a business at the end of the day. They're not doing it for charity. So in order to get a little bit of leverage and a little bit of power, it's really nice if you can work with a weekday, a Monday through Thursday, an off season, generally in the winter, something like that. If you say, or maybe a morning, you could say like, hey, it's a Saturday in June, but can we come in, do a sunrise ceremony, have brunch and mimosas, and be out of there by noon? And then they can turn it over and have a wedding at 4 p.m. So those are the kind of things you want to keep in mind. It's business. You got to talk business to these people if you are a bigger group that's trying to leverage this a little bit. Now, that's the main thing with the places. You got, the kind of unconventional ceremony site, unconventional basically dinner reception, and then you have, if you do want to go the more traditional route where things can get a little bit more tricky. So those are the primary places involved with planning a small wedding. In my book, I do get into a little bit more detail with these, but I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'll tell you when my book can be more valuable. In some cases, the book, the resources, the guides, and the worksheets, the to-do lists, they're really valuable and helpful. With the places, it's really just a matter of getting on Google, doing the research. If you can find a planner in your area who specializes in small weddings, that's great. Another person to ask is the officiant and the photographer. Those vendors, they've done a ton of weddings. They might have suggestions. So ask your vendors. That's always a good idea. Or keep things really, really simple. Come out to Colorado. ColoradoMicroWeddings.com. I run a small, all-inclusive wedding planning company specifically for weddings like this. 20, 30 family members, you guys come out here. We set you up. We got a nice ceremony site, a nice place to go for dinner, beautiful photos, epic videos. You do epic videos. We put that all together. So keep that in mind if you can come to Colorado. If not, just get online, start doing some research, making some calls, and it's really not that simple to find a nice accommodating place for a small group like that. So thanks so much for stopping by, guys. If you haven't already, like and subscribe the video. I really, really appreciate it. It helps me make content like this. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.